Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Huddersfield Planning Subcommittee. My name is Councillor Sheikh Ullah. I'm the chair of this committee. I'm sorry about the heat. We can't do anything about that. But I just want to make a very quick announcement before we start. It's in relation to the first application at Wesley Avenue. I just want to remind speakers that if they can base their speeches and their comments around the scale, design and layout of the application, all previous matters have been dealt with previously, and this is just a reserved matters application. So thank you for that. It is Richard's last meeting as well, but we will say a few words at the end for Richard. He's retiring and leaving us. So item number 1 then, membership of the subcommittee. Councillor Hall.
I think it's James Homewood.
Thank you. Richard, any apologies?
Sorry, yes, Chair, we do have some apologies. We've got apologies from Councillor Susan Lee Richards and Councillor McGuinn.
Councillor Marchington.
I thought Councillor Paula Davis had sent her apologies as well.
Got apologies for the site visit. I wasn't sure. So it's
She's
also,
sending her apologies
okay,
for this meeting as well.
Noted as well.
That's fine.
Yeah, noted.
Yeah.
Okay then, thank you. Item number 2 then, minutes of the previous meeting. Moved by Councillor Sokol. Seconded, is anyone going to second the minutes? Councillor Safdar. Item number 3 then, declarations of interest and lobbying. I'll start with Councillor Marchington first, please.
None, Chair.
Councillor Bellamy.
Yes, Chair. I'm just trying to find out which one it is. Application number 2002-93096. I was actually shown some messages sent to another councillor that isn't on this committee, but I've seen some messages. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Bellamy. Councillor Sokol.
Thank you, Chair. I got a couple of emails, yeah. One is, I think, on item 12 on page 79, and the last one is on application on last application number 14, but I haven't taken any action on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sokol. Councillor Kaushik.
None, Chair.
Councillor Davis.
Yes, some emails excuse me, on item 11, Wesley Avenue application. Not made any comments on that. And as you know, I asked for the item to come to committee as a result of that. And also email on, again, item 13, but again, no comments or no action taken on that.
I've had an email regarding item number 8.
Do you mean 11?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's the same site. It's the same
sorry,
site.
Sorry, I was looking down there. I was looking down there, but yes.
Thank you, Councillor Safdar.
No representations.
Thank you, and Councillor Steve Hall.
Item 11, no action taken.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. I've got 2 as well, Richard. Item 11 and also item 11, 13 and item 14 as well. Thank you. Everyone. Item number 4 then. Admission of the public. There is nothing on this agenda that would require us to go into any sort of private session. Item number 5, deputations and petitions.
None received, Chair.
Item number 6, public questions.
None submitted, Chair.
Item number 7, 8, 9 and 10 are the site visits, and I can confirm that we've been on the site visits this morning. Okay, with the first item, the first application that's up, application 11, page number 11, and this is the reserve matters at Wesley Avenue. Ellie, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Ellie Worth, case officer for this application. The application is a reserve matters at land west of Wesley Avenue in Netherthong for 35 dwellings. The application is brought to committee due to substantial representation received and 2 council requests from ward councillors Firth and Davies. Their full reasons can be found within the committee report, but broadly involves highway safety and parking, drainage, heritage and residential amenity issues. Here is the site, a greenfield which measures approximately 1.22 hectares in size and is on the western boundary of Netherthong. Surrounding the site is predominantly residential in character, with Netherthong Conservation Area to the north. So that's the blue shaded area on the bottom right-hand photo. The orange shows the housing allocation, which is the site, and then the green just shows the green belt, which is to the west. The outline permission, including access, was granted last year via appeal, as the scheme was refused by members of this committee on highway safety grounds. Therefore, access into the site via Wesley Avenue has already been accepted and cannot be reassessed as part of this application. The relevant matters to this application are layout, scale, landscape and appearance. Here is the proposed site plan. The scheme proposes one central road with 2 private drives coming off of it. There is a mix of detached, semi-detached, terrace and flats, including 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 beds. There would be public open space to the north, so that can be seen here, and the scheme would provide 7 affordable homes. Here are some photos from the site. So these photos are just taken from Wesley Avenue. As you can see, the site slopes from south to north, but drops quite substantially the closer you get to Mary Lane. So that would be down there, but the next photos will show that a bit clearer. The last photo is taken looking back onto Wesley Avenue, and this is where access has been agreed. Here are the photos from Mary Lane. There's dense tree cover when the trees are in leaf. The photos show both and are just taken from different angles. So the site is here and there on this photo. These photos also show the substantial change in levels towards Mary Lane. These are views from within the site. So this photo is just walking up the pedestrian access onto the site at the moment. This photo is taken looking onto Wesley Avenue, and then you have the homes that sit along Homedale Crescent, and then behind the trees are the property that is known as the Old Parsonage. These trees are also protected. Lastly, these are just some long distance views of the site. So this is just taken from further up Mary Lane, so the site will sit behind here. And this is also just a long distance view from Moor Lane, so the site is here. So this is Homedale Crescent, and then there's the site there. In terms of principle of development, as mentioned, the site is a housing allocation within the Kirklees local plan, and outline permission has been granted. The density and mix is considered appropriate for the area, providing a wide range of house types and sizes. In terms of visual amenities, some concerns have been raised throughout the design process, and amendments or justification has been sought to resolve these. Materials would be natural stone with natural slate tiles to the roof. The dwellings would predominantly be 2-storey in height, but there are some instances where a few dwellings have been designed to be 3-storey, either to their front or rear elevation, due to the significant changes in topography within the site. This can be shown via the section plans on screen. So, section BB would be, Wesley Avenue is here, so that would be on your left as you're coming into the site. As section CC, the site would be on your right, so this would be the entrance here. Section AA are the properties that would be adjacent to the turning head. Here are some examples of the house types in more detail. So I've just picked a few. So this is plot 1, a 4-bedroom detached dwelling. So this property would be 3 stories to the front and 2 to the rear. Dormer windows have been incorporated into this dwelling's design, so plot 1 and 2 will have the same house type, and that's to try and keep the overall height to a minimum. Dormers are found within the locality. Here is plot 14, a detached 5-bedroom dwelling with an L-shaped design. This is proposed to utilise its corner plot. It would also have an orangery to the rear. Here are plots 26 to 33, so these would be 2-bedroom flats. So you'd have 4 flats in each building, and each flat would have a dual outlook. 3 of the flats in this block here would form the affordables. Lastly, here are plots 34 to 35, a pair of semi-detached dwellings. Both units would be 3 beds and have been designed with front gables. Solar panels are proposed to each building. As mentioned previously, the northern edge of the site, so the site adjacent to the boundary adjacent to Myrie Lane is adjacent to the conservation area, and therefore there is potential to impact upon its setting. To help visualise the site from Myrie Lane, an artist's impression has been submitted. In this instance, officers consider the use of natural materials, stone mullions and corbels to respect the local vernacular. The dwellings to the north of the site, so these would be the dwellings along here, follow the line of topography, which is a characteristic of development in the area. This, along with the northern buffer, i.e. the public open space, which would include natural hedging and some tree planting, is considered to soften the view from Myrie Lane. As such, the scheme is considered to preserve the setting of the conservation area, and no objection has been raised by heritage officers. With regards to residential amenity, the separation distances internally are acceptable. The dwellings are all of a sufficient size, and the majority exceed the nationally described space standards. Some concerns have, however, been raised by neighbours in relation to plot 14 with the bungalows along Home Dean Crescent. However, section plans, as shown on screen, have been submitted with this application. And given that the bungalows are due south of the site, are set at a higher level, and any windows within the side elevation of plot 14, along with plot 13 and 6, would all be fitted with obscure glazing. For these reasons, officers do not consider the impact upon neighbouring amenity to be detrimental. A full assessment upon all other amenity can also be found within the committee report. In terms of highway safety, access would be taken from Wesley Avenue. The access road within the site would be 5.5 metres wide and is suitable to let 2 vehicles pass. The swept path drawing on screen has been provided on the back of KC Highway's initial concerns regarding visitor parking. The plan shows that a refuse truck can enter the site, manoeuvre and exit in a forward gear with some visitor parking on street. In terms of the gradient, the turning head to the west is shown at 1 in 16, and this has been accepted due to the constraints, i.e. topography issues on site. In terms of on-site parking, each unit would have the correct number of parking spaces, and a table to demonstrate this can be found within paragraph 10.61 of the committee report. Waste storage and collection has been considered acceptable and is supported by KC Waste Strategy. In terms of drainage, an appropriate attenuation tank is proposed underneath the public open space. So this is here. Flood routing would be via Wesley Avenue for its full length, and such details have been accepted by KC Lead Local Flood Authority, as the layout demonstrates adequate space for water. In terms of ecology, the appropriate assessments have been submitted and reviewed by the Council's ecologists. The document sets out appropriate mitigation and enhancement measures to ensure biodiversity receptors are protected. Wildlife-friendly planting and fencing to allow the passing of hedgehogs, for example, has been proposed. To achieve a 10% biodiversity net gain, given that the site is an existing greenfield, would require an off-site contribution, but I will just discuss that shortly. In terms of trees, KC Trees have raised no objection to the measures proposed, as they will show that the TPOs will be protected during construction. The buffer zone to match the perimeter planner outline shows that no built form will be in the root protection zone of these trees and will allow for the ongoing maintenance of them. So that's the buffer along there. KC Landscape also have raised no objection to the scheme as an adequately sized public open space is proposed, and this includes fitness equipment. Lastly, a pedestrian access link is proposed onto Myrie Lane, which can be used to access the adjacent woodland. 53 representations have been received as part of the 2 rounds of publicity. All representations have been responded to in the committee report. Lastly, in terms of planning obligations and contributions, the scheme would provide 7 affordable homes in the form of 4 one-beds and 3 two-beds, an education contribution of £62,953, a public open space contribution of £55,298, the management and maintenance of public open space and drainage infrastructure, a sustainable transport fund of £14,833.50p, and an off-site contribution of £71,990 for biodiversity design and layout to help protect the conservation area setting and residential amenity. The scheme is recommended by officers for approval, subject to updating the Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ellie, for your presentation. Excuse me, the first speaker then, Richard.
Thank you, Chair. So we have David Sykes.
Thank you, Chair. As a member of the Planning Committee, it is within your power to make this development greener and better for the community. You may want to take notes because I am going to ask you to apply 4 conditions to achieve this. Number 1, the early start time of 7:30 for construction will be detrimental to the mental well-being of existing residents due to the noise, dust, vehicle movements, etc. I ask for this to be changed to 8 a.m. until 4:30 p.m. and that you make it a condition that only weekday working during these hours will be allowed for the entire duration so that weekend, evening and bank holiday working can never occur. Number 2, there are a pair of unique and historically important 300-year-old gate posts, there's some photos here, on this site that the developer has made no provision to protect. I ask that you make it a condition that these are incorporated into the final design in the same way that the gate posts that currently adjoin Myrie Lane are going to be safeguarded. Number 3, the developer has not yet submitted a detailed construction management plan which needs to be approved by the local planning authority before construction work can begin. This is the aspect that will have the greatest impact on local residents, and so I ask that you make it a condition that, once submitted, this will be debated by the committee so that the public can have their say, rather than delegating this to planning officers. Number 4, contrary to Principles 5 and 16, the roof line of Plot 6 dwarfs the other new houses in front of it, and its frontage sits well behind the rest of that row, as can be seen from these plans. It also creates privacy issues for residents of the existing bungalows behind it. I ask that you make it a condition that this house is removed and replaced with a smaller, more affordable house in the space that currently sits between plots 5 and 7. Whilst this may dent the developer's profits, its removal will create much needed space for increased biodiversity, something that my neighbour Rachel is going to talk more about. And finally, I would like to draw your attention to the list of conditions that the Parish Council Planning Committee have requested, as listed under point 7.2 of the committee report. Most notably, that this development should be net zero, both in terms of its construction and future use. Please do the right thing, apply this condition, and live up to the promises that were made when the Council declared a climate emergency. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have during the course of your deliberations. Thank you. Okay.
Okay. So we have Rachel Palmer.
Did I turn it off? Sorry. Okay, thank you. When the planning inspector allowed the appeal for this site, she included a list of 27 conditions. Number 16 states, details submitted shall include an ecological design strategy to provide a demonstrable net gain for biodiversity on the site. These conditions were carefully worded by the inspector, and the key phrase here is that it has to be a demonstrable net gain for biodiversity on the site. The developer's plans do not do this. Kirklees' own policies cannot override a planning inspector's written conditions. This means that the developer cannot pay the suggested £71,999 contribution towards off-site provision to achieve that 10% biodiversity gain somewhere else. The biodiversity gain has to be on the site. This is for good reason. The wildlife there is already, such as insects, small animals, hunting birds, and critically endangered hedgehogs, have no other untreated semi-wild fields to go to. Kirklees' own ecology unit has already stated its response to the application and said the current level of net loss of habitats at the site is unacceptable, and, in line with the Kirklees Biodiversity Net Gain Technical Advice Note, a 10% gain at the site should be achieved. I therefore ask that you apply a condition stating that there has to be a demonstrable net gain of 10% biodiversity on the site. This could potentially be achieved by removing plots 6, 13 and 14 and using that land for additional hedgerows, wildflower meadow planting and more. There'd still be capacity to accommodate 35 houses at the site, as the site could be redesigned with smaller, more affordable homes. I also ask that you apply 2 more conditions. The first is to ensure that the path down to Myrie Lane is suitable for those elderly residents that the development is proposing to house, and also for wheelchair and pram users. At present, the proposal is to incorporate steps, which discriminates against those with disabilities. This could easily be changed to a winding, gently sloping path with no steps in it. The second is that the start of the construction work is delayed until after August 2024. This will enable location of legally protected bluebells, which grow in these wildfields and are only visible in late spring, to be mapped and preserved, and to also ensure that nesting birds have fledged. Finally, I would
30 seconds.
I'd like to make the point that Kirklees has declared a climate emergency. York Council is already achieving zero carbon housing projects. You have the chance to make it a condition that this development is redesigned to be net zero at the point of construction. Thank you. You have the chance to make a positive difference.
Thank you.
Yep, so it's Neil MacLeod.
Yes, thank you. Can I confine my comments in view of the time constraints to plot 19? Plot 19 is located in the very far northwest corner of the western field. It is immediately south of the boundary of the conservation area and immediately east of the boundary with the established green belt. The applicant proposes to erect a 3-storey house on that plot. No explanation has been given for this, much less justification. That plot is highly visible. It can be viewed from Myrie Lane to the northwest. It can be viewed from footpaths to the west, and it can be viewed from the public highway to the south, leading to Meltham, which is a main road. It would be an utter intrusion into the landscape, which would be prejudicial not only to the conservation area, but to the green belt and the locality generally. A three-storey house in the sort of stone that is proposed would look like a sandstone lighthouse. It would be highly visible. And as I say, no explanation, much less justification, has been advanced by the developer for this suggestion. The designer appears to have forgotten the proximity to a conservation area. Now, both the NPPF as well as the Kirklees local plan is quite specific. If there is going to be harm as a result of a proposed development, then it is incumbent upon the applicant to show that there is a substantial public benefit which will outweigh the harm. Now, as I say, no explanation has been given for this. This is going to be a substantial impact on the conservation area and the green belt. And I would ask the committee to specifically direct that this should be basically excluded, and that the applicant should think again about what is appropriate for this particular plot. As far as I'm aware, and I note the officer's comments, as far as I'm aware, this was the only three-storey house on the site. It is certainly the only three-storey house in a position of high visibility. Thank you.
We have Stephen Durrell.
Okay. It's okay. I'm going to address the climate change issues on this, which is fairly appropriate given it's so hot in this room. The climate change statement by the developer is 2 pages, which could have been written by a 10-year-old. Most answers are one word. Question 4, what measures will be taken to ensure the building design and layout has been optimised to energy efficiency beyond minimum requirements in Part L of the building regulations? Answer, most dwellings have a north-south orientation. That's problematic. In June 15 of this year, new building regulations came in, and I think it's a case that these designs, layout, no longer comply with the building regulations. The answer from officials on page 66, consideration has also been given to the orientation of the dwellings in order to maximise passive solar gain. Such measures are in accordance with Policy 12 of the Holme Valley Neighbourhood Development Plan. The development plan of Policy 12, promoting sustainability, states all new buildings should incorporate technologies which generate or source energy from renewable low-carbon sources. The reliance on gas-powered boilers is disappointing, very disappointing. The officials further say, however, further measures may be required in the case of an approval at the building regulations stage. I think whoever wrote this is quite clever. But you can't do that anymore under the building of June 15. The new regulations state, the updated necessitate careful consideration of the new standards from the design phase in order to ensure compliance can be demonstrated without incurring costly adjustments later on. There is a problem with this east-west houses, I think there are 9 or 10 of them, which makes it very difficult to gain full solar power from them. And they require really a redesign of the site. It states in the new regulations, if companies do not adhere to Part L regulations, they may face possible consequences, which can include stop work orders, fines, legal action. Maybe we should start crowdfunding for legal action. One other thing I'd like to say is on the vehicles from the site, they should not take place during school hours, from 8 to 9:30 and 2 to 3:30. Everybody who knows Netherthong knows that it is chock-a-block at that time, and you simply cannot have more vehicles in the village. Thank you.
I think we've got Councillor Thurf. If you're online, we're ready when you are.
Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, we can, thank you. Yes, we're ready whenever you are, Councillor Firth. You just tell
Right,
us when
well,
you're ready.
I put a lot of things together over the last few months about Netherthorne, and it strikes me as though it's already being cut and dried. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you all how I see Netherthorne, and it's down then to the people of Netherthorne whether they like it or they don't like it. First of all, the infrastructure in Netherthorne, which includes surface water drainage and sewers, is not fit for purpose. Over the last 2 years, I'm the silly guy that has to go out when there's a sewer burst and organise it to be repaired. The last time I went out, just over a year ago, when raw sewage was running down past the church and down the road, and the kids were walking in it going to school. Now, I don't know how much Kirklees, how many times they've spent up there sorting these problems out, but I think it's all fairy stories, it's all talk, because the drainage, surface water as well as sewerage, is in a mess. We then look at Myrie Lane at Netherthorne. They were told some 2 or 3 years ago, please don't build down there because when it rains heavy, it floods. And guess what? It flooded. A guy's built some houses down there worth about £500,000 or £600,000 in what we used to call the sledging field, and the floods came and there were nearly 4 foot of water in the bottom of Myrie Lane. And so it goes on. In extreme conditions, it will flood again. You know, the whole thing is, it isn't on the flat. You're going to be building on a slope. You're going to be using, apparently, unbeknown to me, nobody's spoken to me about this for a while, but you're going to use Wesley Avenue as an in and an out, because there's no other way you can do it. And you're going to take up and build 35 houses on a perfectly good green agricultural field. What is Kirklees Council trying to do? Are you trying to wreck Home Valley? Because you're making a good job of it. You come out, you trot out all these excuses, what you've done and what you haven't done and why we should have it. I will tell you all now, I was on this planning committee 30 years ago when councillors said what was going to be built and what wasn't going to be built. Officers used to listen. Now it's the tail wagging the dog. And we've all fallen into the trap, every single one of us. The infrastructure of the roads isn't good enough. Dean Road, leading from the bottom of Carfield, is very narrow, and there's a lot of accidents happen there that nobody ever even reports, I can tell you. The best road we have into Netherthorne is New Road. It's the widest road, and I think you can pass 2 cars in either direction. But the bottom line is, once you've got into Netherthorne, it narrows off again then. And we've got the Red Adder syndrome round the corner, where you've got to wait to go up Moor Lane because it's too narrow. You've also got Out Lane, which is about width of a car. There's problems down Out Lane now. Nobody can go in certain areas down there. There's also Church Street, down towards the school. That's another area where it's so narrow you can barely get a car through to pass. I mean, I know I've been on all these roads. I know another song like the back of my hand. I used to do. No, I'll use the word I used to do. Because when you lot to finish messing about with it, it will not be fit to live in. You've just about ruined every little village that we've got in Home Valley South. Upper Thong, Netherthorne, Inchleave Mill, Homebridge, Scholes, Epworth. They've all been ruined by overbuild, Aid Edge, and it's not even nice building that you finish up with. There's no match to the properties that were there 200 or 300 years ago. You just build anything and expect people to go along with it. Well, I'm sorry, I can't go along with it.
Councillor Firth.
Sorry?
Councillor Firth, 30 seconds left. I mean, I thought some of your reasons were on planning matters, not everything.
These are planning matters, young man. These are planning matters. Don't you ever forget it. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Whatever you want to do, you'll do it and you'll ruin it, but don't come back crying when it's been done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so we've got Andy Keeling.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. My name is Andy Keeling. I'm a planning consultant and I'm here as the agent on the application. As you have heard, the site is allocated for residential purposes in your local plan, and outline planning permission has already been granted for residential development. This application is a reserve matters application and it follows the principles established within the outline. The access, the location and the design has already been agreed, and 35 dwellings was the number proposed. At all times, Haywood Homes have sought to cooperate and work with your officers. To that end, a pre-application inquiry was submitted and advice received, and that advice was followed when the submission was made. During this application process, there have been many consultations and there have also been meetings with your officers. And I must stress that all of these have been productive, and at all times Haywood Homes have been very cooperative with the requests that have been made about all matters. They have worked hard to achieve the report that is in front of you with your officers and all the consultees. The report is a positive one. There are 13 consultations on the report, all of which support this application. All technical matters, including climate change, have been dealt with and agreed with your consultees. Haywood Homes have agreed to contributions in accordance with policy on affordable housing, open space, education, highways and transport, and biodiversity. All these matters will benefit with this planning application that is in front of you. In conclusion, Chair and members, Haywood Homes are a local company. They are based in St George's Square. They use a local workforce. They will build using local stone and slate. Their design reflects the local vernacular, and they have worked hard to achieve the development that is in front of you. They have worked hard with your officers and with your statutory and non-statutory consultees. I would ask that you look through the report that is in front of you.
30 seconds.
And you accept the recommendations within it, and you accept all the matters and the technical issues have been dealt with appropriately as your consultees have agreed. Thank you, Chair.
Over to the committee for comments then, please. First, Mohan.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, can I first of all ask regarding plot number 6, because quite few objections are there to the plot 6 is not suitable on there. Can I ask the officer to clarify, is it possible to remove this or relocate it somewhere else?
Thanks, Councillor. Yeah, as it stands, Councillor Sokol, the application must be determined on its merits. So I wouldn't advise that we get into, or the committee get into trying to amend the design or take out a plot and put it in. I think if the committee aren't happy with a particular plot, then they must defer the application. But I think, Ellie, if it's possible, if when we come on to it, if you can put the plot up on the screen, and so we can talk about why we think it's acceptable.
Thank you.
Okay, I mean, this is that the plot you're referring to, councillor?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, as officers, we don't consider that this is particularly out of scale. There are 3-storey properties in the vicinity, within the settlement, and also close to the site as well. We think that as there is a change in land levels, that the character of the area can take some height, but also can take a mix of development styles and a mix of house plots and sizes. So you will get views from around the site when you're travelling into the village from different locations. But because of the topography and because of the mix of housing, we think that it's in character.
Thank you. Thank you anyway.
Oh, so can I just add something through you, Chair? I just want to say also, in terms of plot 6, it is no taller in height than plot 14. Obviously, given the land levels, the site does slope. So just in terms of the sections, plot 6 will be no taller, should we say, than plot 14 also. So they are, this house would be no greater than the other ones within the site. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Bill. I'm happy
Thank you.
with that.
Councillor Davis.
Sorry. Chair, I haven't finished yet.
Oh, have you not finished? Sorry.
Sorry. Chair, I remember we refused the outline application when it came to the committee. I was on the committee. But applicant went to appeal, and appeal inspector upheld the appeal, yeah? It must have cost a lot of money to the council. We lost this one on appeal. And we got a reserved matter application today in front of us. I think we have to consider or make our decision very carefully. I don't want to go back again to the appeal system and lose again. Chair, to me, I think we got a good mixture of houses, yeah, which is 35. Even the appeal inspector said in his decision 35 is can accommodate on this land. We got a good mixture of houses, 5-bedroom, 4-bedroom, 3-bedroom, or 2-bedroom, and which I think it meets the needs of the local community. We got a good section 106 contribution. We got a affordable houses, 20% which they say. We got a education contribution and others as well. Yeah. Chair, I think we have to retain the gate post. We have to safeguard the historic, yeah? I think they're going to move somewhere else, and I don't know, it should be a suitable place where this site, where this. Some resident here, they spoke on regarding time during the construction of these houses, yeah? 8 in the morning till 4:30 in the evening, and no work on Sunday or bank holiday. I personally believe, I think it's very reasonable time they propose it. If they stop working 4:30, I think they might pack up by 5 o'clock. Yeah, that's very reasonable time there, I think. Chair, I think if we put this condition in, I have no objection on this applicant. I might go along with the officer's recommendation to approve this application. Thank you.
Sorry, have you moved officer recommendation, Councillor Sokol? Yeah. Right. You made reference to the gate posts and the construction times. Was that something as part?
Yeah.
Officers need to respond. David? Councillor Sokol has moved in. You made reference to the gate posts and to the construction times. Is that? Can we just get some clarification whether that would be part of the conditions, please?
Thank you. So just in terms of the gate posts, 2 are to be moved from the site. So as we walked up the site this morning where the access is, the gate posts there are to be relocated onto the new pedestrian connection. And I believe that is covered by a condition that we have requested. Conservation officers did want to see that and they wanted more details of that, subject to if it was approved. Just in terms of construction working hours, so environmental health officers have reviewed the application proposed and they are happy with 7:30 till 4:30. We haven't requested a condition of these hours because if they were to be a bit more flexible with them, they still wouldn't be outside the normal operating hours that we accept. So on some applications we will put a footnote on to set out what are the acceptable construction working hours. So it would give a more flexibility, but if members thought that sticking particular to what has been shown in the construction management plan, that could potentially be conditioned if needed. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry. You've got the wrong date. Sorry, excuse me. Oh. There is no chance for supplementary questions. Okay. We need to hear from the committee first. Just to remind all speakers there is no chance for supplementary questions at this stage. There is a process to the meeting and we need to hear what the committee is saying first. Unfortunately, the public and people that are objecting or supporting the application have had their chance. We need to hear what the committee is saying first and what the officer is saying first. And I'm not going to allow people just to interject and start asking questions from the floor. Unfortunately, that won't be happening. Thank you. David.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Just to reiterate and just hopefully to give the committee a little bit more comfort, there is an existing condition on the outline permission that's appended at the rear of the report, and that's a construction management plan that details would need to be submitted for noise and vibration, dust, artificial lighting, things that can impact on residential amenity. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David. Councillor Davis, Paul Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Sokol has made quite a number of comments I was going to make. I was part of the committee as well that voted against this originally. Obviously, they appealed and we are looking at reserve matters now. So I think we accept that that's what we're here for, and that's what we're trying to do is to get something which is most as appropriate as possible for the location and for the residents. A number of things that Councillor Sokol has raised, which I'm going to raise again because I'm not really clear, because I think we need some definitive views on this. The gate posts, I understand from reading the documentation, there's going to be movement. I want to understand, I'm sure we all want to understand, does that mean that all of those gate posts will be protected? And how will that happen? And how will we ensure that's going to happen? In terms of plot number 6, take on board the issues of the height and the comments around dwarfing, but there was also raised an issue around privacy, so I'd like to have officers' views around the privacy issues, any overlooking problems with regards to that. In terms of the construction plan, I understand the construction plan is going to be attached and it'll be worked on. I think the starting time, certainly I'd agree with Councillor Sokol, I think an 8 AM starting time is a reasonable time. And as a committee, we can put conditions on, so it is up to us. I think so. Just to make sure other committee members understand that, I think the debate between 4 and 4:30, personally, is less of an issue. I think it's the starting time that's more of an issue for me. But I'd hear from other members on that as well. The issue that was raised on the net gain in terms of biodiversity, we're well used to dealing with applications where that 10% additional net gain cannot be met on site. What I hadn't picked up, and this is what I want clarification on, is that the planning inspector said that we had no option, or it's alleged that the planning officer, inspector rather, said that we had no option but to implement that. That is contrary to every application I've ever dealt with, but I'd really need guidance on that, or we need guidance on that one as well. And also, sorry, there's quite a list here, and also one of the residents raised the issue of the path to Myrey Lane. Be very interested in if the, what the feasibility of making that more accessible would be. I understand sometimes in terms of the way the land, the land layout of the land is, steps are perhaps sometimes the only option, but I'd really like to understand that one. And I think those are probably the key things that I want to raise. I think, as Chair, as you'll notice, they really are based on residents' views. Some of them I picked up myself as well. And I'd just like to say, thanks to residents coming along and expressing those views, I think in a very constructive manner and a very polite manner. That's not always the case, so I commend them for the way they've raised that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. We'll come to you in a minute, Ali. Councillor Bellamy and then Councillor Steve Hall. I've got you, Joe.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Davis has actually probably asked most of my questions. Yeah, because mine was about the off-site 71990 10% net gain for biodiversity. I mean, biodiversity is quite a new thing on planning applications, as we know. It's not been going on forever. So I'd actually like to know where that 71990 is actually going to be spent. And like I say, Councillor Davies has covered the other questions around biodiversity for me. And I'd also like to know about, you mentioned the gate posts, but there's obviously more than one set of gate posts. I think we've picked that up. So what is the plan for the other set? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bellamy. Ali, do you want to? So the gate post, the privacy at number 6, and then the start time.
Through you, Chair. So just, starting on the gate post, so specifically in terms of what Conservation and Design have asked for is the gate post on Myrey Lane. I acknowledge that there are some gate posts within the site, however, they've not been requested to be retained, so they would be lost as well, where would you put them is the question. So yeah, it's the northern ones from Myrey Lane that would be replaced to make the new pedestrian connection. Next question in terms of privacy for number 6. So in terms of the elevation, the side elevation that would face onto Homedale Crescent, the openings all look to be serve as like a secondary opening to a bedroom and for like an ensuite and a toilet. So we have recommended a condition so that all the windows within the side elevations of plot 6, 13 and 14 are fitted with obscure glazing, minimum of grade 4, so obscure. So that would be how amenity or overlooking would be mitigated with the properties on Homedale Crescent. And then the last question was in terms of biodiversity. So yeah, that would be spent off-site. I don't know specifically where that will be spent. I don't have an answer to that question, but I assume it will be within the locality. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hall and then Lawson.
Thank you, young man. I listened closely to what Donald was saying, and yeah, I've been here for 6 years as well, mostly on, a little bit off.
I've been here for 8 years.
Yeah, bloody long time, I'll tell you. I've got to say, I can remember going back years, people up Home First, Nether Thong, Upper Thong, whatever thong you want to mention, have been complaining. There's no way for young people to live. They're all having to flee the village. They're having to go, Meltham or wherever. It's been told. A planning inspector said, yeah, fine, okay. I think that roughly says everything. Yeah, we know that the roads are narrow around that area, but yet people want to buy Chelsea tractors to drive kids to school, etc., etc. Things are as they are. And the hours of work, I'm afraid, it's the same throughout Kirklees, same throughout whichever authority you want to go to. 7:30 is not a bad time to start. And let's face it, the weather that we've got in this country, builders have got to make time up as well. So I totally agree, no working Sundays, 1 o'clock finish on a Saturday, no working bank holidays, that's fine. As far as it goes, I'm okay with this application and I will second it.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. So we have a mover and a seconder for the officer's recommendation. Councillor Lawson and then Councillor Davis, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As a councillor for Coslamore and Neverton Ward, is going back to the actual start times. I've got 2 developments in my ward, and the amount of complaints that we've actually had from 7:30 in the morning, 6 days a week. If you also note that most of those houses backing onto the site are actually bungalows, so they are most likely people of retired age that are not going out to work, that are going to have 6 days a week where they're actually woken up at 7:30. I would look at something more to look at round about 8 o'clock. I'm also concerned regarding the actual deliveries, and Donald actually made quite a good point, is if the village is jam-packed on school run times, then maybe they need to do something like they did for the Castle View development in Neverton, where they weren't allowed to sort of deliver the route that they were doing during school hour times. But I would seriously look at the actual start times, because this, obviously the development is going to take some time to actually do. So people have got to live with that, and 6 days a week being woken up by construction work is not fun for people.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Councillor Davis and then Councillor Safdar.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, Ellie, I'm going to come back to some of the points. So, and thanks for what you said earlier. Firstly, on the gate posts. So there are 2 sets of gate posts that will be lost. Have they been identified in the same way as being ancient gate posts as such? First question.
Through you, Chair. So that's been considered by conservation officers. So they just want to preserve at least 2 of those. So it would in essence be that you'd save 1 set, but you would lose the other set.
So okay.
So there's 2 sets. There's one already as you walk up from Maryland, and then there's one that splits the fields up near Wesley Avenue. There's some more gate posts there. So they in essence would be lost, but they have been assessed by conservation and design officers. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So my request would be that we look at that second set. I think they would make, I'm sure, make a fantastic feature on the site, and I would want to put something in which says that they look at relocating that. It's not going to be that burdensome for the developer. It's not a major change, and I really don't think that would be unreasonable at all. Yeah. 2 other things I just want to pick. One of the residents said that the planning, and I said I hadn't picked this up, that the planning inspector had put a condition on the approval that we must have the biodiversity gain on site. It didn't quite cover that, because that's contrary, as I said earlier, to other applications that that I've dealt with anyway. So could you clarify what that position is, please, on that? Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, in reference to the previous decision, the outline permission and the biodiversity condition, because it was several years ago, it didn't specify a percentage of biodiversity net gain. So officers consider that this is of benefit, because you can achieve some biodiversity net gain on the site. There is an area of landscaping, and that will be beneficial, but also off-site you are achieving a contribution of over £70,000, and that will be achieved in the local area. So as time moves forward with policy and it changes and evolves, we think that the best situation is to have the off-site biodiversity net gain, because you're actually achieving more. The condition on the outline didn't achieve 10%.
I absolutely understand that. What I'm asking is, when the residents has made a particular statement, which I really want a straight answer on, has the planning inspector put a condition on this to apply it on site? Because I understand exactly what you're saying, because that's what we do. But that's what's been said. So we really need to clear that up, I think.
Oh, there we are. Now I am. Yeah. Sorry, we've got the condition here, and in full it says, details of layout, landscaping and appearance submitted pursuant to the condition 1 shall include an ecological design strategy that details a scheme of measures to provide, and this is the important bit, a demonstrable net gain for biodiversity on the site. So our policy, LP30, goes up above and beyond that, because the officers interpret that condition as saying, basically, you must put some enhancement or demonstrable enhancement on the site, but it doesn't say how much. Officers consider that the proposals now do provide some, but doesn't say how much. And our policy, the Kirklees policy, goes above and beyond that and specifies how much enhancement must be made, and if you can't achieve it on site, achieve it off site with a contribution. That's what I consider to be the interpretation.
Thank you for that clarification. That was my understanding. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. I didn't want to leave any doubt in anybody's mind for us as committee members as well. Thanks very much for that. And the last one, which we missed out, Ellie, so I'm back to you again, taking up all your time, was the request to look at the path and whether the path could be made more accessible. So I would like a view about how that path's been put together. And as I said, I know the lay of the land will give issues, but whether that's a possibility, if it's feasible or not.
I'll take that if you want. I mean, as you know, Councillor, it's a steeply sloping site down to Mary Lane. In an ideal world, yeah, we want a 1 in 20 path to get between the 2 points. But there are occasions when there's just not sufficient space to provide that. There is a path provided, but that won't probably be 1 in 20. There's on this plan you can see there's an alternative route, which is longer, that obviously doesn't make the 1 in 20. But to get there via the direct route will involve stairs. Now, there's got to be an acceptance in an area like that not every route will be DDA compliant and be suitable for everybody. Obviously, there are alternative routes via the adopting highway for other users to use.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Paul. Excuse me. It's not necessary and appropriate to be doing that at committee. Yeah, I'm sorry. I am sorry. We are not going to take this here. Yeah, we're not going to take it. I mean, if you do carry on, I mean, there is space in another room if you want to move there. We can't be passing messages like that to committee in an open when it's open like this. I'm sorry. I can't.
When officers are not telling the truth, the officer has said in his report.
That's the third time. What can I do?
Net loss of biodiversity on that site, even with what the planning is planning to put in.
Councillor Safdar.
Yes, I just have some concerns. Forgive me for sounding rather simple and sounding rather cynical, but these 7 affordable housing units, is that a cast iron guarantee? Because I've heard, I'm not making any accusations, but I've come across cases in the past in other authorities where the number greatly reduces post-building, or there's been issues with purchasing and labour. So I'm really keen. I'm here to bat for the already working man. So what I want is I want to cast iron. I don't want to read the exam later that, oh, there's been a problem. We've had to reduce the number of affordable housing to 1 or 0, or it's going to come in 2029. So the most important priority for me is, like Councillor Hall said, is keeping people in the location, in the village, close to family and friends, close to local communities, not having to move away from the authority, as well as a guarantee of 7, if not more, affordable homes.
Thank you, Councillor Safdar. Ellie?
Through you, Chair. So, yeah, in terms of the 7 affordable homes, they will be secured. Well, as part of the outline, it says to secure 20%. So 20% of 35 is 7. So they will be secured as affordable homes. Obviously, if they weren't to provide them, then the development wouldn't be in accordance with the plans, etc. So, yes, is the answer. They will be secured by the Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chair.
So that's legally enforceable.
Yes.
Yep. I was just going to say we secure that through a Section 106 agreement, which is legally enforceable, and we prevent further development until we put trigger points into the 106, which prevents occupation of later buildings until the affordables are delivered.
Thank you. It's very reassuring. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Just to remind you, there is an offer of a mover and a seconder in Councillor Sokol and Councillor Hall. Councillor Marchington and then Davis.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I think most of the points have been covered. The other issue that was brought up was about the English bluebells being a protected species and about movement of that. I know delaying application until 2024 is quite significant, but actually is a way of ensuring that as part of the biodiversity net gain on the site, that that they can be moved sympathetically, or is that a possibility?
It was only a quick one. I think in terms of the discussion, there's been, as I said, a mover and seconder, but I'd like to add to that 2 conditions that I've referred to, and that's to include the second pair of gate posts to be not to be lost, but to be incorporated in design. Yeah. And also, I'd also like to include in it the 8 o'clock start, which has been raised by myself, Councillor Lawson and Councillor Sokol.
Thank you. So, David, the second go.
Thank you, Chair.
8 o'clock start.
On both of those matters, you know, committee, you're the decision maker. If you want a scheme to come in for the gate posts, we can require that by a condition, and I think, you know, we will work it through in terms of the heritage officers as well, so we will work up a condition in that regard. And on the second point about environmental about the hours of construction, and through the existing condition that we've got on the outline, but if you're wanting those hours to be extended as you see fit, then that's your decision. That's fine. We can achieve that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So, a mover and a seconder has moved the application. David has... Andrew, was yours about...
The bluebells.
The protected species, was it?
Yeah, well, the specific point was asked about that, wasn't it? About them being protected.
Yeah.
Through you, Chair. So, yeah, in terms of the bluebells, they were raised as part of a representation. So our council ecologist has been out on site and has confirmed they are on site. In terms of when they came to blossom, they were missed from they weren't included within the June 2022 report. So there's the question of were they there, etc. But what I would say is there is a condition on that we are recommending to state that if approval is granted, then an updated botanical survey should be undertaken, yes, by either August this year, because anything after August you won't be able to see them within the site, or if it's not done by August, then it should be done next June during peak season. So it is covered by a condition, and it will be covered by legislation with Natural England. Thank you, Chair.
Julia.
Just to expand on that as well, as set out in your update, as part of the updated botanical survey, I can't say it now, as part of that, a detailed sort of mitigation strategy will come forward as part of that as well, and that will set out things such as the timing and things like that. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Julia. So I don't think there are any further comments. I think they have put all the conditions in the second gate, the 8 p.m. start, the additional survey that Andrew was referring to. And if there's no further comments, I think we'll go to the vote. Richard, thank you.
That's fine, thank you, Chair. So just to be clear, we've heard it moved by Councillor Sokol, seconded by Councillor Hall for the to support the officer recommendation, subject to the additional comments that have been made around the incorporating the second set of gate posts, 8 a.m. start time, and we've got that additional condition in the update in relation to the botanical survey as well. So that's what we're voting on. So we're all happy with that. Okay, so we'll go to the vote then. So if I start with you, Councillor Sokol.
For.
Councillor Korshek.
For.
Councillor Davis.
For.
Councillor Lawson.
For.
Councillor Safdar.
For.
Councillor Hall. For. Councillor Marchington.
Abstain.
Councillor Bellamy.
Against.
Councillor Allah.
For.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for, 1 against, 1 abstention. So the recommendation has been approved.
Thank you. We will just have a short break now.
Right, 1 minute, please. 1 minute.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, the second application then, please. Page 79. William?
Thank you, Chair. My name is William Simcock and I'm the case officer for this application. The application is for the erection of 2 detached dwellings, land off Greenhill Bank Road, New Mill. It's brought forward Huddersfield Planning Subcommittee for determination under the terms of the delegation agreement since it's attracted significant local objection. The site comprises a steeply sloping plot of land on the eastern side of Greenhill Bank Road. There is at present no vehicular access into the site. It's on the edge of the built-up part of New Mill. At the eastern or lower end is the Moorbrook Bills housing development. On other sides it is bounded by undeveloped land. And I shall show members the images of the site. This gives a general impression of what it's like on the left as you're coming uphill from the village. And the next image, just the same shot taken further up with the Moorbrook Mills development on the left. And similar shot showing a general impression of the area looking downhill back towards the village. The proposed dwellings are to be sited near the western boundary of the site and close to the highway boundary. They'd be a modern design, each would be 4-bedroomed, and they'd incorporate a carport suitable for up to 3 cars, taking direct access to the highway. They would be built setback from the highway is just a small amount to allow the construction of a 2-metre wide footway. There is at present just a narrow footway. The plans indicate that stone is to be the predominant walling material, But on the application forms it says materials are still to be agreed, so this must be treated as illustrative. There is a recent permission on the site, 2016/92761, also for the erection of 2 houses, which expired 30th of January 2021. This was for a very similar scheme, the scale and design of each dwelling would have been essentially the same, and they would have taken direct access to Green Hill Bank Road. The substantial differences between the historic and current schemes are the positioning of the dwellings within the site. The proposed dwellings having been moved somewhat to the south by up to 20 metres, and also are slightly closer to the highway boundary. There have been several changes in the policy context since that time, including the adoption of both the local plan and Home Valley Neighbourhood Development Plan, revisions to the National Planning Policy Framework, and the adoption of various SPDs by the Council, including the House Builders Design Guide. It is considered that only limited weight should be placed on the historic permission, at least insofar as it relates to the assessment of design and visual amenity. For highways issues, the Highways Design Guide has been adopted since then, but very similar criteria would have been applied. The land is without designation in the local plan, which means that in principle there is no presumption against new housing. There are no constraints on the land that make it inherently unsuitable, although there are challenges in developing the site because of the steep gradient. The 2 new houses considered in isolation would be quite large and would be 4-bedroomed, but the proposed development would still, it is considered, have a relatively small footprint in relation to the large plot size, and a large amount of space would be left between both their mutually facing side walls and between the side walls and site boundaries. The topography of the site would, it's indicated on the plans, be largely retained in its natural state, with the creation of just some small raised terraces as gardens. This, it is considered, would avoid giving rise to a strongly engineered appearance over the whole site and allow it to remain some of its natural character. Whilst it's acknowledged that the proposal introduces new built development into an undeveloped semi-rural setting, and would be quite prominent being placed near the top of the slope, it's considered on balance that the site is capable of being modestly developed for housing and that the layout, scale and number of units is appropriate given the site context. Paragraph 8.3 of the House Builders Design Guide SPD states that contemporary and innovative approaches will be welcomed where they're of high quality and complement the existing context. The proposed dwellings would be of modern contemporary appearance owing to the built form, the use of flat roofs, fenestration and other design details. And being sited near the top of quite a steep slope, there is a risk that a more conventional design with pitched roofs and a simple rectilinear built form could seem overbearing in this context. The design has been chosen so that the dwellings lack a single, clearly defined rear elevation, breaks up some of the mass, and this is also assisted by the overhanging flat roofs, which help to provide a more horizontal emphasis. It is considered on balance, therefore, that design is a thoughtful and appropriate response to the character of the site and its surroundings, and would represent a gentle transition to open land outside the application site. At its closest approach, the dwelling on plot 2 would be approximately 23.5 metres from the facing rear elevations of 66 to 70 Moorbrook Mill Drive, down here. The only primary habitable room in the rear elevation, that of the first floor bedroom, would however be 30 metres away from these properties' rear elevations. It is considered that this degree of separation, notwithstanding the elevated position of the new developments, would be enough to avoid giving rise to an unacceptable level of overlooking. It is considered that, on balance, that the outdoor amenity space available to each dwelling in terms of size and quantity would be functional and proportionate to the size of each dwelling, and that interior space is also appropriate in terms of amount and layout. Green Hill Bank Road is an unclassified road subject to a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. It's considered that the local highway network is capable of safely absorbing the traffic generated. Each dwelling would have its own point of access, and the plan shows the provision of safe visibility displays. Internal turning provision is not indicated, but is not considered essential for a road of this type. The same or very similar access arrangements were accepted for the 2016 permission. Parking space for 3 vehicles is provided, and bin storage is provided. As it says in the report, some minor changes would have to be made to the layout to ensure easy access to the refuse bins. It is noted that visitor provision is not made. Under the Highways Design Guide, provision for visitors parking at the level of 1 space before dwellings should be considered. Where we have a scheme that's only 2 units, then a decision is made based on the characteristics of the development and the site. It is considered that as this stretch of Greenhill Bank Road has good lantern visibility, and that visitor parking provision was also absent from the 2016 scheme, it is considered that it would be difficult to demonstrate that any on-street visitor parking, that is occasional visitor parking arising from the development, would have a significantly detrimental impact upon highway safety. It is noted that there would be improved pedestrian provision, that this scheme would have a 2-metre footway, where the existing one is only approximately 1 metre wide. So it is considered that on balance pedestrian safety will be improved, and this can be the subject of a condition. It is recommended that conditions similar to those attached to the granting of the 2016 permission be applied here, including means of access to the site for construction traffic, the footway is previously stated, and the layout of surfacing and parking areas. The development plots are on steeply sloping land and would involve works on or close to the highway boundary in order to create a footway and new retaining structures to support it. It is considered that it would be reasonable and proportionate to require the developer to provide, before development commences, a report signed off by a competent person demonstrating a site can be developed without endangering the stability of the highway. In the future landscaping of the site, there is opportunity for ecological enhancement. At present, it is semi-natural landscape, but not deemed to be of high value in its present form. There are small trees on the site which are not considered to be worthy of a preservation order. Considering climate change and carbon reduction objectives, the site is considered to be in a sustainable location since it's within walking distance of the centre of New Mill, where there are a convenience store, post office and other facilities, and as well as buses to Holmfirth. Measures have been set out in the report proposed by the developer, which would serve to limit carbon emissions. The architect has also proposed that microgeneration could be incorporated into the scheme by condition. So it is considered that the development would be sensitive to and preserve local character, and the site would also ensure a good standard of amenity for future residents without compromising the amenity of existing residents, and that safe access to the highway network can be achieved. It is therefore recommended that the application be approved subject to the conditions as set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, William. First, just one speaker, Donald.
So Councillor Firth, if you're there, we're ready when you are.
Right, yes, Greenhill Bank. I find these houses rather peculiar. They don't sort of match up with anything we've got at Greenhill Bank. And it is, as William has said, it is a very, very steep area there. It was initially a hanging ground for clothes, by the way, not for anything else. When they call it a hanging ground, it was just for clothes. And as I say, it is on round a very, very sharp left-hand corner. And we do have problems. There's been 1 or 2 accidents round that corner where people have parked just round the corner. Somebody going up Greenhill Bank hasn't seen them till it's too late and bang. So I don't term it as actually being probably as safe as it might be, as it might have been, because of the corner and the access and egress into that hanging ground is not very good. It's on a steep. It's not a lot going for it, to be right honest. And I think it would serve a better purpose for hanging floors in rather than putting these. And the houses themselves, they aren't going to match up with anything next door, because the property next door probably built about 300 years ago. So they're a different style altogether. And it's taking off the villagey look. We are a village when everybody's said and done, you know, New Mill. It is a village, and we haven't sort of got too many of these fancy houses. So, you know, I hate to be awkward, but I just can't agree with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Firth. You're never awkward. That's it. I think there's no, yeah. So it's over to the committee, please.
I think you were reading my mind then, Jess. It must be some telepathic link that we have. Thanks. Obviously it's my ward. I know the area very well. And, you know, as Councillor Firth, it is very steep there. And I'm sure you saw that today on the visit. It's always difficult, isn't it, when it comes to designs of houses? There will be people who will look at this design and absolutely love it, and I think there's others who will hate it. And I think it's your very much your Marmite design in that regard. I don't find it particularly offensive, and I understand. It's got a combination of newish designs. It probably goes back 60s, even probably later than. I'm no expert in architecture, but it does incorporate, or certainly it should incorporate, and it looks like it will do, you know, stone and materials. And I think the key thing for me is it's the materials. So certainly it's that that sense that we make sure that the materials being used do reflect the valley and do reflect the vicinity and heritage in that sense. There are some modern houses further down New Mill, up on the side, on the opposite side, also.
You're not like that.
They're similar in terms of the steep slope in that regard. So I think, reading through the recommendation, reading through the work that's been done, I think the only thing for me is the ensuring that we get these materials right. I think is the key issue for me.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Sokol, and then Councillor Bellamy.
Thank you, Chair. I might upsetting Donald. Well, I don't want. I think, I love that design, honestly. It's a new modern design. We are moving forward, we're not going backward, yeah? Yeah, building industry going very fast now to the modern industry now. If you see in Huddersfield University, it's a nice new model, and they're going to build another part of the university just on the bottom Northumberland. That will be a new design. If we say that it's not matching with keeping with the neighboring property, those neighboring property now 100 and 200 years might be old. We have to move forward. I think if they use the right material, matching with in the vicinity of this location, I don't see there will be any problem with this. Yeah, and they provided off-street parking, three car parking each property. So I'm happy.
Thank you, Councillor Sokol. Councillor Bellamy, and then Marchington.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'll agree with Councillor Davies on this. They are a bit Marmite, and I think I'm on the I think I'm a bit with Councillor Firth, to be honest. It reminds me, I don't know, for some reason, it reminds me of a school building to the pictures. I'm not the only one then. I think the idea of 3 spaces per house for parking would be fine. To be honest, I don't think it needs visitor parking. I think that would probably cover it. I do have a bit of an issue, though, with that, with where the access would be off that road. I think part of the problem is, with it being quite of a hill, vehicles tend to accelerate to come up a hill. So I can see that being maybe an issue if you're accessing in and out. That's just my thoughts, to be honest, on it. I'm not sure really what I think. I can't see no viability in building 2 houses down that slope anyway, to be honest. I think it'd cost a lot to build them, and they'd probably not ever be worth what the cost would be, but I know that's not a planning reason. So yeah, that's my comments, and like I say, I just don't know what to think at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Bellamy. Councillor Marchington.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just got one question about the indicative drawings. Is seems to be like a utility building or something on top above the first floor. What's that? Just asking about that. I've got some other points on that page. Do we know what that is? Can't work out on the diagram. Anyway, because it looks to be more than. It looks to be 2 stories above what we're calling ground level. Right. Anyway, yeah. So I think William mentioned about the condition of microgeneration. I think given that these 2 properties are south facing, they look to be facing due south, it would be, and the likely costs of construction, I think it would be, if we can condition that they have, certainly solar, photovoltaics and a battery. I'm very in favour of putting a battery system in at this stage. I might even go as far to say air source heat pumps on it, given that the costs of putting that. I think if we can condition that, we ought to do, given the location of the site. I think aware of what we're saying about the access on the road. I mean, some of the properties I've visited in that part of the Home Valley, they're up and down they're building on steep hillsides, but they still haven't got level access. And I'm hoping I'm reading the diagrams right, that actually the level where the cars go in, there's actually level access into that part of the building. I think that's one of the things you can do in that sort of area. I've seen similar designs on the continent. It is a pity they've not put them together, because that would have made the whole efficiency. They could have had a combined, solar gate, for solar hot water heating. That could have been done. I've got friends who are living in a 5-unit masonette built to a very high quality on the continent, and that's a modern design. But that actually means that it's more efficient. I don't like it's the bits that are poking out and everything, which I know are just not energy efficient. You've got spaces. And if you live in the Cone Valley, or if you live in the Calder Valley, you do see quite, multi-story, 4-story houses built into the hillside with level access on the floor. So you can do design on hillsides, which is more in keeping. But I don't, given that it's so far away from the other properties. And just the last comment I was going to make is the photographs of all those properties we've seen in the presentation. I can't see any of them that are 300 years old. In fact, the ones at the bottom are modern houses built in a sort of similar to the local vernacular. So the ones that are going to be close to it are going to be modern houses built in trying to mirror traditional design. So conditioning microgeneration, I think, is the biggest point.
Thank you, Councillor Marchington. So, Chris, can we come to you on the highways and the access first, and then can we get clarity on the materials and then the points that Councillor Marchington's raised about the conditions of the heat pumps, solar panels and batteries? Chris, to you first, please.
Yeah. Right, thank you, Chair. Yeah, regarding access is level, whilst the site slopes. it's built up, and so it will be level. The access from Green Hill Bank Road will be level. It's a car park arrangement, an open car park arrangement with 3 off-street parking spaces per dwelling. Yeah, it doesn't provide internal turning, so we would be reversing either to or from the site. That's not unlike other properties on there, and for the level of traffic on that particular road, visibility in both directions is good. It meets the required standards. They're also setting the properties back about by widening the footway, which will give that intervisibility for pedestrians. If there were pedestrians walking on there, I mean, I don't imagine pedestrian flows will be extremely high on there, but it does give that intervisibility between pedestrians and the vehicles coming out of the property. Servicing would be directly from Green Hill Bank Road, which is for other properties on there, which is considered acceptable.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, through you, Chair, there would, in the if a permission is granted, be conditional materials to be submitted and inspected on site, and I believe Councillor Martin has asked a question about what was the on the top floor. The accommodation consists of a lounge, kitchen, bedroom, WC and boot room. It's not exactly a utility room, but it would effectively serve as a utility room because it connects with the upper garden. I don't think I have anything to add now. Yes, this could be. I'll just check it's in the list. Yes, it's in the list of conditions, number 11. Further details and measures to limit carbon emissions, energy performance, and this could include the installation of solar panels or similar. Thank you, Chair.
So is it acceptable to say it should include? Can we condition it should include? Because given the likely cost of construction, the inclusion of photovoltaics, a battery system, air source heat pump will be marginal on terms of construction.
I'd certainly support that, but I think we just need a clarification, don't we? Because I know when I've raised this previously, particularly around air source, we weren't able to insist on it as of yet, but I don't know if that's changed because legislation was changing. So we just, could somebody clarify whether we can insist on that and solar panels?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. The applicants did put in a climate change statement. We've suggested in paragraph 1037 of the report that more is required than they've put in the report there. So it concludes that we need to take into account policy 12 of the Home Valley Neighbourhood Development Plan and further details about energy performance of the building and how it would positively contribute to carbon reduction aims are required. At the moment, we haven't been prescriptive about what that should include because we don't know how that would work with the design of the houses. For instance, photovoltaics on those roofs there. I'm not sure how much roof space there is unless they were on the walls, etc., etc. So at this stage, the summary of the condition is for more information without that prescriptive detail.
Thank you, Teresa. I mean, we haven't had any movers or seconders for or against the application. Any council?
Yeah, I move officer recommendation.
Thank you.
Here, there's some condition proposed by Councillor Andrew Martington.
Thank you, Councillor Sockles. So it's been moved and seconded by Councillor Hall. Any further comments? No. Richard, I think we'll go to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. So it's been moved by Councillor Sokol, seconded by Councillor Hall, for the officer recommendation as outlined in the report. So if I start with you, please, Councillor Sokol.
For.
Councillor Korshik.
For.
Councillor Davis.
For.
Councillor Lawson.
Against.
Councillor Safdar.
For.
Councillor Hall. For. Councillor Marchington.
For.
Councillor Bellamy.
Abstain.
Councillor Oller. For. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 4. 1 against, 1 abstention. So the officer recommendation has been approved. We'll just pause a minute. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. The next application, page 101, Lum Lane. Tom, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Tom Hunt, case officer for this application. This is a full planning application for the material change of use to convert one dwelling into 2 dwellings with the formation of a new vehicular access parking space to number 4 from Lum Lane. This application has been brought to subcommittee for determination at the request of Councillor McGuinn as set out in paragraph 1.1 of the report. The host to be subdivided and its surrounding land is outlined in red, and the associated agricultural field is outlined in blue. The application site and the surroundings is designated green belt. An aerial view of the site is shown, demonstrating proximity to the junction of Lum Lane. My pointer's not working. As set out in the committee report, there have been 3 representations received for this proposal, those related to concerns over chiefly highway safety and visual amenity. No external alterations are proposed to the existing property itself, except a parking area and new timber boundary fencing to aid in the subdivision of land. The formation of the parking space would require the retaining wall to be partially removed and land regraded. There are no objections to the principle of development, which would reinstate 2 properties as originally built. They would both be 3-bed properties, which would normally be required to supply 2 off-street parking spaces each, as set out in Kirklees Council Highway Design Guide, SPD. The reason for refusal set out in the report solely relates to issues of highway safety arising from the proposed parking arrangements. The proposed parking space for number 4 is set out within the front garden. Number 2 will continue to utilise off-street parking to the rear of the property, accessed from Sharp Lane. In terms of visual amenity, the single parking space proposed would limit the loss of green landscaping for visual amenity and its greenbelt setting. The resultant space would, however, provide limited and substandard visibility for highway safety. The proposed parking arrangements for number 4 were reviewed by the Highways Development Group engineer, raising objections due to its proximity to the junction and its ensuing additional harm that this would cause to highway safety. To overcome this additional harm, they advised to relocate the parking space to the rear of the property with access via the existing driveway of Sharp Lane. A history of negotiations on this application is set out in section 5 of the report. In respect to parking to the rear of the property, this could not be accepted by the applicant. The reasoning for this is provided in paragraph 5.6 of the report and assessed in paragraphs 10.39 to 10.51. Officers do not raise objections on visual or residential amenity and consider the proposal would not be inappropriate development in a green belt. Officers are of the view that the proposed off-street parking space to serve number 4 would detrimentally affect highway safety. The proximity of the parking space to the junction of Lumb Lane with Sharp Lane would result in unacceptable turning incidents between vehicles reversing to, from the access and turning traffic at the junction. In addition, the narrow width of the footway adjacent to the access unacceptably restricts the available visibility, particularly in the critical direction looking west of the exit of the drive. The proposal would therefore be contrary to policies LP21 and LP22F of the Kirklees Local Plan and paragraph 111 of the National Planning Policy Framework. For these reasons, as indicated within the committee report, the recommendation is that the application be refused. Chris Dowles from Highway Development is present for further questions. Nothing further to add, Chair.
Thank you, Tom. So the first speaker.
Have Paul Johnson. Andrew Johnson.
Okay. We're surprised to be addressing you today because our proposal is neither contentious nor gained huge amounts of objections. It's a very small project. This has been going on for 7 months. We applied in December to separate our house back into its original 2 properties, which incorporated blocking up 2 doorways. We put in some alterations internally for future reference. However, number 4 would currently still be a 2-bedroom property as it stands now. It wasn't formally acknowledged until January, which was 4 weeks later, as we were informed by the architect that it was being treated more of a commercial stroke new development than residential, which was surprising, so we had to resubmit. We were informed that after it being classed as a new development, we would then have to apply to provide parking spaces for number 4. We sent in a revised application for 2 spaces within the front garden where there is ample space. Our neighbour objected to the parking plans, not to separating the property. Our neighbour then brought Councillor McGuinn in, and Councillor McGuinn has made it abundantly clear at all stages of this process that he is in favour of our application and requested that the condition of providing a parking space be removed as he didn't see it was necessary and that roadside parking should be allowed in such a quiet area. Planning came back to us and said they were compromised to one parking space at the front and could we send in a revised plan so that despite said objection they could fully support our proposal, and I quote. Soon after we were subsequently informed that the parking space would have to be at the rear and accessed through our land and our drive. This is by far the most disruptive solution to both properties. This disruption would affect privacy for both properties. The use of the amenity space, as it is suggested, would alter the existing boundaries and dig up patios, therefore losing all current amenity space available to number 4 at the rear, which goes against Kirklees policy. We at number 2 would no longer be able to use the amenity space freely, as is in the case now, for our children, our dogs and any visitors. There are benefits to our small project because we'll be providing a much needed extra home into the Kirklees plan with no carbon footprint. We are not building a new development, we are simply reverting a property to its original state as it was built in the 1900s. It's clear to see from the frontage where the original 2 buildings start and end from the differing garden levels and existing stone walling separating the 2. The amenity space behind the property has never been a shared space. The previous residents of number 2 purchased number 4 as a separate entity, and the driveway access from Sharp Lane only became into existence after the previous owners purchased a parcel of land where the driveway has now been constructed. Our neighbours at number 8, who also own number 6 and rent it out, have not provided off-road parking for the tenants occupying number 6. They park freely on Lum Lane where there are no parking restrictions. And why should this not be the same case for number 4 as it is right next door? It's clear from the site visit this morning that there is not an oversubscription of parking in the area. And we know highways have a job to do in assessing risk and safety, but it must already have been deemed a safe area as there are no restrictions in place. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Paul Johnson.
Okay. I think the crux of the problem is the provision of the parking space in the first place for the 2-bedroom cottage, which is number 4. It's always been the original planning's opinion that we required off-road parking because we were told from the very first visit that parking in the area was oversubscribed, and that was policy. If you look at my evidential document that we put in back in May as response to that from planning, we showed that there is no oversubscription of parking in the area at all. In fact, it's devoid of cars. What we wanted to do was revert what were 2 original properties back into 2 original properties and have the same level of parking as next door does, which is the inner cottage, which is parking on the road. We noted that highways haven't raised any objections to that. There are no parking restrictions either to the front or to the side of the property, and I hope that the people that visited today could see that. We never said we were unwilling or unable to put parking at the back. If we have to put parking in the back and that's recommended, we will do that. But what we were saying is if you look at the benefits versus the negatives, as regards Kirklees policy, the negatives far outweigh the benefits. We struggle to see under the existing boundaries how we can provide pleasant amenity, an outdoor space for number 4. We would have to dig the patio up to provide a turning circle to get a car out. The other thing that we would state is that even though it's not relevant to possibly to planning, but from a privacy point of view, shared amenities at the back provides no privacy for either number 2 or number 4. Quickly and finally, we plan to stay living at number 2, and we want to do for many years to come. It's only just for reasons that we've pertained into our other 2 documents that we are putting this application in. Which I can understand highways safety objections to the parking space at the front. They're the experts, not me. But if you are going to refuse that application, we would want you to consider going with Councillor McGuinn's suggestion that in this instance, because it is unique and outweighing the pros and cons, that you consider that we grant the application without a parking space, or will work with planning to provide a parking space at the back, but retaining the boundaries and the outdoor amenity for the people that are going to use the property. We do like to thank Councillor McGuinn, who has been very supportive in our matter, despite him initially putting the objection in the first place for the parking space at the front. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
There's no more speakers, so it's over to the committee. Councillor Bellamy first. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm a bit confused on this. Why does there have to be a parking space? If originally it was 2 houses, it's now been, that was knocked into 1 and now being put back to 2. I just don't understand why there has to be a parking space. I know of somebody else that's done this, that's gone from 1 house, well, gone from 2 houses, knocked into 1 and then back to 2. And that's my parents. And they weren't demanded that they provided a parking space for the other. So that weren't, it was just a switch. So I don't understand why we are saying it's got to have a parking space. I mean, I wouldn't agree with knocking the front garden out 100%. I think that would absolutely spoil that area altogether. But can't they just park on the road? I mean, I know it's not ideal, but like I said, so I'm a bit with Councillor McGuinn. I just don't understand why that's got to be there. And if I can have a response to that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Chris, is it you? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, basically, we are creating, historically, it may have been 2 dwellings. It went to 1. It's now going back to 2. Obviously, there are whole properties. The thing is, we create a new property, it needs to provide some safe parking for that property. In our view, it can't create it on Lum Lane because it's too close to the junction. The proposal for the front garden, again, is unsafe because of the reversing movement near it. So from a highway perspective, the view is that it has to be provided to the rear where parking's been taking place in the recent past. With regard to Councillor Bellamy's example, I'm not familiar with where the parents' house is, but obviously you have to assess every situation on its own merits. That may be on an estate somewhere on a straight piece of road, or I don't know. We're assessing this on its merits. I think it's its proximity to the junction that really we say it needs to provide some parking. The other properties along that row haven't been split and joined together and re-split again. So if they were built historically with no parking, someone with a car will park there with no control over that because there's nothing happening to that. This is one where there has actually been an extra dwelling being recreated, but for quite a considerable time it's been 1 dwelling.
Thank you, Chris. Councillor Davis, please.
Yep, I think Chris has covered some of the key points I was going to pick up. I think it seems to me very clear. I think everybody's essentially saying this, that if not everybody, the few speakers so far, that if there's parking in the front as proposed, then there is a highway safety issue which has been outlined. So the issue which has been raised, which I was going to pick up as well, but has now been covered, around whether there's a need for parking has been explained as well, because it is in effect a new dwelling. And I guess I reflect on the fact that how many times and how many applications as a committee we get pushed to ensure there's off-street parking. And I've sat and had in many debates where some members have said there's not enough off-street parking, and therefore they've opposed development, which is understandable in that regard. So I think we have to be consistent as well in our approach in that, and I'm sure, and I would understand it myself if I was the applicant, it's difficult to take on board because the view would be, well, it's not building a new house, but it is a new dwelling, and therefore there would be requirements in that sense. I heard from the applicant that they would be willing to work with officers in terms of the rear parking. That's the suggestion that's been put forward. I understand that causes some difficulties, but that seems to be the most viable way forward with regards to this. But certainly from my perspective, I couldn't support the building of the actual car space as proposed in the application.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Marchington, and then Councillor Bellamy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. A lot of sympathy with the residents, but I think it is a clear principle that if you're changing a dwelling into more than one dwelling, it needs planning permission or needs to comply with that. So whether that's a house in multiple occupation or it's a dwelling that's two dwellings that's been made into one and reversed as well. Perhaps your mum and dad ought to be taking some advice that, you know, it is, yeah, I was aware of that and have been for a long time. So I think we need to take that into account. And it is unfortunate in this situation. I think I'd be minded to defer rather than refuse. I think given that the applicants are willing to work towards it, and I do understand what you're saying about the amenity value at the back and everything. And it's a balance for me, it's a balanced judgment. It's a balance between maintaining the amenity space, doing something that's right, in the, you know, providing additional dwelling and the highway safety issue. So I think I'd be minded to propose a deferral of this to see if we can find a suitable parking at the rear of the property.
Thank you, Councillor Marchington. Councillor Bellamy and then Councillor Sokol.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to come back actually to clarify that the one I was talking about is actually on Woodhead Road, which is absolutely packed with cars. So I would say that is oversubscribed. And a lot more cars up there than what there was on Lum Lane this morning. So this is why I still don't understand why it has to have a parking space. Like I said, I'm tempted to agree with Councillor Marchington here, and I think we'd probably be better to defer this and have another look at it, because I just don't see the warrant of making a parking space.
So,
Thank
sorry,
you.
have you seconded that, Councillor Bellamy? Yeah.
Sorry, I was just trying to keep track. Have you moved deferral, Councillor Marchington, or just thought about moving it?
No, I think we do need to defer it. But what I do want to hear is it's I think for me it's a balanced judgment about where the off-road parking is a need for it. So I want to hear what other committee members think. Personally, I think it would be, from a highway safety point of view, it ought to be to the rear of it. I do understand from what the applicants have said about the disruption that will cause and the reduction in the amenity to the two properties because of that. So for me, it's a balanced judgment. At the moment, I think I would be favouring, from a highway safety point of view. But no, I'll move deferral. Happy to move deferral.
That's fine. So we've got mover Councillor Matchington for deferment, seconded by Councillor Bellamy at the moment. Yeah.
I'm happy to second that, but I more want to look at the fact that can we look at just completely removing the parking element?
Yeah, okay. So we've got the offer on the table at the moment is the deferral between Andrew and Donna. Can I just pause it there one moment? Councillor Sokol and then Councillor Davis.
Chair, I think we all know the highways issue on there. Sharp lane is very, people, the road is speeding over there on the junction with the Lomb Lane. It's not right. But I think highways are right. When you develop another unit, whatever flats or unit or dwelling, we all officer always ask extra parking space for those, yeah? I think highways are right to asking the parking space inside there. But again, I think we need to help the residents, with no doubt. I think Andrew is right. If we defer this application, if the applicant is willing to sit down with the officer, come and listen to them and come back, this application back to here or delegate to officer, I'm not sure.
Thank you. Councillor Davis, please.
Thanks, Chair. Certainly in favour of deferral. However, on the basis that Councillor Marsden outlined, which is a deferral for the applicant to work with officers to look at the rear parking. I understand Councillor Bellamy's point, but but I'm being very straightforward, is I don't believe that we should be in any way trying to override a principle which we've established and is a clear principle that we have around parking. So for me, the deferral would be around giving the time for the applicant to talk to officers, to work on the proposal for the rear parking, and to come back to the... Now, obviously, it's up to the applicant then, and if the applicant, then decided not to do that, and in terms of what Councillor Bellamy said, to come back and still challenge the principle, that's entirely up to them, of course.
Okay. Richard,
I was just going to get some clarification around the deferment. That was it. So at the moment, we've got a proposal from Councillor Marchant for deferment, and that's specifically to allow the applicants an opportunity to investigate with officers the ability to have parking at the rear of the property. Whereas Councillor Bellamy, I think deferment is looking more at exploring the opportunity of having no parking whatsoever. So I think there's two different things here. So I think if we've got an opportunity here for members to either support, I guess, Councillor Marchant, which was to move to explore the rear parking, as opposed to Councillor Bellamy's suggestion. So if are you seconding?
I'm happy to second Councillor Marchant.
Okay, so that's the motion that's on the table at the moment then.
Councillor Steve Hall next. Did you want to speak? No.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just glad that Paul's put that forward. I would support deferral so long as we're looking at rear parking, because if we start passing applications and there's no parking, the public will think it's official. The council have gone nuts. And that's going to create a hell of a lot of bloody problems for us. So there's got to be a provision of parking somewhere.
Councillor Hall, any further comments? Okay, so it looks as if there's an offer on the table for deferral with that specific caveat on the rear parking only. Moved by Councillor Marchington, second by Paul Davis. If there's no further comments, I think we'll go to the vote. Yep.
Okay, right. So so this is for the deferment vote. So if we start with Councillor Sokol.
Yeah, Chair, only, again, I have to say, if applicant agree to provide, officer provide parking space.
The deferment is to allow applicants that opportunity to have that discussion.
I go for
Councillor Corshett.
For.
Councillor Davis. For. Councillor Lawson.
For.
Councillor Safdar.
For.
Councillor Hall. For. Councillor Marchington.
For.
Councillor Bellamy.
Against, because she hasn't added the bit on.
Councillor Allah.
For.
Okay, so that application's been deferred.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you. Sorry? Shall we adjourn? Yeah, thank you, Tom.
Matt, short break, please.
Okay then. Everyone ready?
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Okay then, the final application, page 119. John?
Thank you, Chair. My name is John Holmes and I'm presenting this application for a single-storey extension and external staircase to number 57 Fixby Road, which members are being asked to consider. This drawing shows the side and rear elevations of the extension. The side elevation along the shared boundary with number 59 is shown along here, this elevation here, and it will be 10 metres in length. The height of the extension is 3.45 metres. This drawing shows the floor plan of the proposal. The extension would tie into rear and side extensions that have already been implemented, and the staircase is shown to the side, just on the outside of the property here. It's worth pointing out that there have been recent approvals for other development adjacent to the site. At number 59, a two-storey side and rear extension has been approved, and that's shown on this floor plan here with the elevations above. In addition, a dwelling has been approved in place of what is currently a store. The entire site is under the same ownership, so this store is currently used in association with number 57. As said, there is an approval for this to be redeveloped into one dwelling, as shown in these plans. These are some photos of the site taken from Broomfield Road. And these are some site photos from the rear of the property. This shows an aerial view of the site. Obviously, there's development subsequently approved for the extension of this property here, and the proposal is intended to go in this area of the site here. This shows the site as it was originally built and the subsequent additions which have taken place. The proposed extension would lead to an increase in the footprint of number 57 by 357%. The site is unallocated within Kirklees local plan. No objections have been received from third parties, and the Council's Highways team has not raised objection to the proposal. As set out in the committee report, the proposed extension is not considered to create a harmonious addition to the building and wider locality, and the continuing piecemeal development is considered to result in the site appearing substantially overdeveloped. Whilst both number 57 and number 59 are currently under the same ownership, consideration must be given to the impact of the development upon number 59, as this could continue to be used as a separate dwelling, which is not linked to the operation of number 57. It is considered that scale and massing of the extension, in conjunction with its close proximity to the attached neighbouring property, would result in a development that would be oppressive and cause an unacceptable loss of amenity to the occupiers of number 59. The application is therefore recommended for refusal on the basis of the visual impact of the extension upon the existing building and the wider locality, as well as its impact upon the residential amenity of neighbouring occupiers. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
First speaker.
We've got... do you want to go... Is it Mr Uppel first, or... Yeah, Mr Uppel. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Navinder Uppal. I stand before you with a heartfelt plea representing my extended family and the legacy we have built at Fixby Stores. Our journey began in '86 when my father, who affectionately became known as Mr Fixby Stores, acquired a humble paper shop. He was beloved by the community, and his dedication to serving our neighbours has left a lasting impression. I'd like to emphasise several crucial points that highlight overwhelmingly the support for our application and the positive impact our extension will have on our community. First and foremost, we're immensely grateful that no objections have been raised by our neighbours. The silence speaks volumes, reflecting the trust and confidence they have placed in our family and our commitment to their well-being. We find ourselves in a unique position as a sole local convenience store in the area. With the ongoing construction of over 200 houses nearby, our store stands as a vital hub for the daily necessities of our neighbours. Throughout the years, we've been a constant, providing essential services and fostering a sense of belonging within the community. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we rose to the occasion, going above and beyond to support our community. The services we provided during the period were met by immense gratitude and appreciation from numerous local residents. It's a testament to the trust they have placed in us and the integral role we play within their lives. Our partnership with a major supplier and the essential extension will create employment opportunities for at least 10 additional team members. This investment will not only benefit our community, but also contribute to the local economy. With an expanded space, we'll be able to meet the changing needs of the community with investment in the latest and most efficient equipment to help reduce carbon emissions. We'll also be able to increase our offering, particularly on local produce, freshly baked, and more own label produce, basically trying to future-proof the business. This will further enhance the shopping experience of our customers and provide them with an even wider range of quality options. We respect the views of the planning officers. However, I'd like to emphasise that while the shop is located at 57 Fixby Road and the house at 59 Fixby Road, the whole site is owned by the family and is part of the same footprint. None of our family have concerns regarding the proximity of the proposed extension, as it's deemed the outside area will become more private. In conclusion, I stand before you with sincere and genuine desire to continue our commitment to serving our community. We have a track record of dedication, reliability and resilience, and we humbly request your approval for this
30
extension.
seconds.
It will enable us to enhance our services, create employment opportunities, champion local suppliers, contribute to the well-being and growth of Kirklees and the local community. You'll also note that local councillor Amanda Pinnock considers the proposal represents a win-win for the area and considers the application should be granted. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the councillors and Councillor Ulla, Chair, for your valuable time today.
Malcolm Sizer.
That's it. We've got there. Yes. My name is Malcolm Sizer. I'm a chartered town planner, acting on behalf of Mr. Uppal and his family. You have heard from Mr. Uppal the background to the application. It proposes a modest extension to meet increasing demand from what is literally a local corner shop. No objections have been raised by members of the public, even from those who live directly opposite the proposed extension across Broomfield Road. Highways officers raised no objection, and the recommendation from environmental health officers that hours of delivery are restricted, even though they aren't presently, is accepted. The first reason for refusal, as recommended by officers, is that the proposal, when viewed with existing extensions, would be cramped and incongruous overdevelopment, failing to be subservient to the original property. I consider that any argument on that basis was lost when the very large extension you will have seen this morning was approved. A modest, flat-roofed, single-storey extension to it is rather closing the stable door after the horse has bolted. As seen in the Google Earth photo previously circulated, the extension will have minimal visual impact. Mr. Uppal has already indicated his own and his family's disagreement with the concern expressed by officers in the recommended second reason for refusal. Mr. Uppal and his family have no concern about the proximity of the extension to their private garden area at the rear of number 59. That, in my view, is essentially a private, not a public issue, and as such is not relevant to the decision on this application. Taking all the above into consideration, as well as the local support from Councillor Amanda Pinnock, I would urge you not to accept the officer's recommendation, but instead to approve the application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Malcolm. Thank you for your comments, Mr. Uppal. So it's over to the committee. Councillor Sokol first, and then Councillor Korshik, and then Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chair, I understand why the officer are recommending for a refusal this application because overdevelopment. Yeah. Well, this extension is not to the for the residential purpose. It's for the store, convenience store, where they want to. I know this store is the only one store in the large village, Fexby, and you have heard from the applicant there are another 200 odd houses are building. They already built in there. As this is the only store in the Fexby, all those community members rely on this store for their shopping. If they don't have extension on this store, the resident, especially member of the community, the Fexby, they have to either go to Brigg House, far away, or they have to go to Huddersfield or Asda, which is still nearly 2 miles away there, or they have to go to Rustry. So that's why I think the applicant want to extend it to provide more variety of foods, items, and there accommodate fresh bakery and other. Chair, to me, I think extension is only single-story extension, as we say in the report, with a flat roof. And I think I've seen the other, somewhere in the report that it will be going part of the Morrison supermarket who will provide the good service over there, yeah? It said in the report, if we get the extend the store, it will provide extra 10 jobs, yeah? It's employment there. But I don't see any objection from highways, have we heard, or environmental service, or any resident. This store is very, very popular within the community. If we approve this application to give opportunity to the applicant to extend the store, I think the community, local community, and Fexby get the benefit of this service. So I'm happy to support this application, Mr. Spear. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sokol. Councillor Korshik and then Safdar.
Thank you, Chair. I do support what Councillor Sokol said and supporting this application, as I have seen no objections either from highways or from next door neighbours or anybody. As Councillor Sokol said, this time of period when we are struggling with everything, and this store is providing some employment and supporting the 200 more houses, and I think this is the site where we are going to support to approve this application. I second it.
Sorry, can I just be clear? Did you actually move? Okay, so when we get to it, we need to be clear about the reasons why.
Sorry, Chair, through there. Sorry, I said I support the applicant, but I should have said I move the to approve the application.
Second.
Yeah, that's fine, but what we will need to do after we've heard the rest of the debate is we need to be clear about the reasons for approval in terms of overturning the refusal. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Safdar and then Lawson.
I'm very encouraged that there's going to be extra local employment opportunities during the cost of living crisis. I think it's key that the council send a message that we support local business, we support local employers, and as the son of a grocer, I mean, I don't know this particular family, but I'm encouraged that the fact that there's going to be an own label offering in this store, despite the demographics of the area, because from what, in my experience working within the retail sector, as account manager, as a manager, and working in the voluntary sector, that the own label product is extremely important. And I think the residents in the area would appreciate that. So the fact that there's going to be employment opportunities, and the fact that the extension is only going to be affecting the family members within the Uppal family, I believe. So I don't really see a problem. So I think we need to be more sympathetic towards local businesses, especially offering the own label products to residents that may be struggling with the cost of living crisis.
Thank you. Councillor Lawson and then Hall.
Thank you, Chair. From what I can gather, there has been no objections by highways, people that would potentially be overlooking this extension from is it Green Hill Road? So there's nothing there. He's looking at the property next door to the shop is actually owned and occupied by the family. I know that an extension this size could be seen as oppressive, but if, say, the neighbouring property was sold, then the buyer could actually look and go, I don't want that. I also look at the fact that they're going to look at sort of delivery time, so there's not going to be sort of vans turning up at all said, and I actually would fully support giving them approval for this.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Councillor Hall and then Bellamy.
Find it very difficult, this one, and I'll tell you why. The only difficulty that I've got with this proposal is I hate external staircases. I don't see a need for them. I think they're dangerous. I think they're incongruous. I think they stand out like a sore thumb. Apart from that, this proposal, I've got to be honest, I can't see out wrong with it. It's a business that's thriving, obviously. They own next door property. If things changed and hereditaments were sold off separately and somebody says, well, oh, don't like that, it's got an extension out, don't like, well, don't bloody buy it then, it's that simple. I'm afraid, I can't think of a reason sufficient enough to go against officer recommendation, but I don't like the recommendation, and I think the only thing that I really do dislike is an outside staircase. Like I say, I think they're horrible.
Thank you, Councillor Hall.
That's my case.
Thank you, Councillor Bellamy and then Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a bit different to Councillor Hall there, because I don't mind the outside staircase, to be honest. I think it could probably look quite nice. My concern is with regards to the recent approval to the garage at the rear, because obviously that's got an application to be turned into a dwelling. So with this extension, it's going to be pretty close to that dwelling, and that is really my concern. And what is the distance between if you put this extension onto that other dwelling? Because I don't know whether, I mean, if it stays in the same family, oh well and good, that doesn't matter in sort of way. But it's like you said, if they went then to sell that other dwelling, you are literally going to be practically on top of each other, from my case. And are you going to be, is it wide enough to, I don't know, get furniture down, for example? I mean, I work in an office, and believe me, you can't get furniture down passageway aside to that. So that's my concern. I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm not saying for it. I just think it's a difficult one, an extremely difficult one. But I wouldn't mind knowing what that gap would be between the extension and the garage, which will then be a house with that thing.
Thank you, Donna. We'll just come in 1 minute. Let's just, Paul, do you want to get the distances, and I will listen to Paul Davis.
Thanks, Chair. I'm not going to go through all the points people raised. There's an element of the of this being difficult in the sense of I understand totally why the officers have said what they've said and actually why they're looking to refuse. I guess what many of us are doing on here is trying to apply, if you like, the reality and almost, I guess you can call it common sense of the situation. I think in terms of the representative of the applicant, he sort of summed it up really in that if we were going to stop overdevelopment, we should have done that previously. We have a building now which is significant in terms of its size, and this extension really isn't radically changing that. And in addition, as has been outlined, this is a history of being family owned and is likely to be the same going forward. We can't guarantee that, but it is highly likely that's the case. Already been said, there are no objections, both from residents and statutory consultees. So as much as I really do not like pushing back officers' recommendations, I'm struggling to support their recommendation on this one, not because I doubt their technical ability, just because of the issues I've outlined.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. John, have we got the proximity between the garage and the proposal as per stated by Councillor Bellamy?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Through you. If I can show you. So essentially, what's been approved is that the house is the full width of the plot. There is a small gap here between the boundary of the side elevation of the dwelling and what would be the rear elevation of the extension, if you can just see on the plan up there. That distance is approximately 1.5 metres. But there's, again, if they were to sell, if they were to become separated from one another, rather than it all working as one ownership site, if they were to separate the ownerships, we have no control over where the boundaries lie, but presumably they would go along here. This incorporates the bins within the boundary of this dwelling. So again, that gap there may not even be usable by the occupiers of that dwelling were the ownership to be separated at some point in the future.
Through you, Chair, it's 2 metres.
Yeah, I think, is that it now? No one else wanting to?
Always the last one that I had.
Yeah, so
I think if we get clarity on the reasons.
Yeah.
Through you, Chair, we've heard what members have said, Councillor Sokol moving and Councillor Cowshick seconding, based on the community facilities and services that the stores offer at the moment. If I can draw members' attention to paragraphs 1039 and 1040 of the report, officers have assessed community facilities and services, and we reached a balanced judgment in paragraph 1040 against the harm the development would cause. So what it appears to be from members' debate at the moment is that they see a different balance, and they for the moving and seconding that's come forward, put the emphasis on paragraph 1039, which it refers to policy in the local plan and the NPPF about proposals which retain and enhance provision and quality of existing community facilities and service, which can include local and established shops. So it would appear to be that members are putting forward that in their justification, although there would be issues, the benefits of the proposal outweigh the harm identified by officers. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
So we're happy with that? Yeah, so we'll go to the vote on that basis then. So that's been moved by Councillor Sokol, seconded by Councillor Cowshick for approval on the basis of the summary that Therese has just outlined in the report. So, Councillor Sokol.
For.
Councillor Korshik.
For.
Councillor Davis.
For.
Councillor Lawson.
For.
Councillor Safdar.
For.
Councillor Hall.
For.
Councillor Bellamy.
Abstain.
Councillor Marchington.
For.
Councillor Allah.
I'm an abstain, Richard.
Okay. So the application has been approved.
Thank you.